Hi everyone, Nick and Sue. We just really wanted to connect with you again today and give you some LifeChurch Hill Green news, and also Nick's got a short word as well. So I think probably
Hi there.
okay. It's been quite a week for us, hasn't it? I think in Hill Green, and we've had everything from Eunice and Andrew's dance routine to ABBA, which was definitely fun and caused a smile on our face. I was thinking maybe we could use it for Friday Night Live. Dave and Liz, what do you think? And also we've been delving into Psalms, haven't we? And I think the Psalms have been, well, really helpful to me, really relevant, and just a really good thing to do. And the news is that LifeChurch Big, as in LifeChurch Manchester, are also going to do that now. Obviously, in the midst of all of this, we lost a very dear friend to us this week to the coronavirus, and Martin Flatman, as many of you know, and we may look like we're okay doing this today. Actually, we're heartbroken, we're devastated, and all of that, and so it's quite hard to do. We know that Jesus understands. He's a man of sorrows, who is acquainted with sorrows, and I guess it would be truthful to say that we're wrestling a bit with our thoughts and our emotions just now. And I know you didn't all have the privilege of knowing Martin. I wish you had. We know he's with Jesus now, and I'm confident of that, and that brings me great peace. I can't possibly sum him up in this, but talk to me about him and I'll tell you loads. He was a Jesus lover, he was a people acceptor, he was a champion of the least, the last and the lost, and I could go on. And he was a great welcomer. I even found out this week that he welcomed our very own Joe, and he was one of God's generals. And I just want to thank everyone for really interceding and praying for him this week. I think we went to the end, didn't we? We gave it our best shot. I'd really like you to pray for Anne and John and Kathy and Isabel and Phil and Rachel and George, to continue to pray for them. The funeral won't be for a couple of weeks, but obviously that's going to be difficult. I don't know how many of you know Jim and Hilary Evans. They did come a couple of times to Hill Green, and we also lost Jim this week. We knew Jim less, yet he was a gentle giant who faced his illness with absolute just the best way to do it. Such an example. So we've lost two amazing examples in our lives this week, and that's really hard. I'd love you to pray also to continue praying for Liz, who many of you know from Friday Night Live, a neighbour of Sue's who lost her mum this week, and now sadly Liz has coronavirus. So there's such a time to pray, isn't there? For Mike and Shirley and for Danny, I think Nikki asked us to pray for them too. I just wanted to say also that I think the life group Zooms are going amazingly well. For me, they are such a connection. I don't know about for you, and I think they've been really successful. Also this week, life group, there's a new WhatsApp group for life knitters, and Carol's led that, and that's been an amazing connection for people, and lots of God chat on there as well. The food bank outside Hill Green Church is going really well. I managed to drop something off there this week, and I think you'd all agree that Sarah coming home was probably one of the highlights of the week. She has come safely home from Peru, and I don't know whether some of you saw the plane landing. That was amazing on the 6 o'clock news, I think. We want to welcome also Donna and Luxie and Bianca to Pete and Sue's life group, and Mark, I think, maybe now. And I think God's just going to add people to us during this time. There was a celebration today, actually. I'm doing this on a Saturday for Charles and Gillian, who apparently dressed up because it was their wedding anniversary, and they watched their wedding video. Sue was, I think that's probably all I want to say, sorry.
Okay, we're still praying for Adrian as well.
Oh yes,
for the whole
Nottingham
household, that this sickness would soon go. Just a few thoughts really. I'm going to get Sue to read a passage from Ecclesiastes in a moment, because she's got a better voice than me. This has been a tragic week as far as we're concerned, a really horrible week. In a sense, we've been struggling with things in the past few weeks with coronavirus anyway, but in a sense this week it's really come to our door with the death of Martin being taken by coronavirus, and that's so hard, and yes, I'm struggling with things really, so I apologise if I'm not on top form. but this is the time that we're going through at the moment. Let's get Sue to read Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. It's a famous passage actually, but it's something I felt led to this week. So have a listen to this.
Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1-8. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace.
Yes, and I felt these last few days we've been a time to weep. It's a time to mourn. This is big picture stuff, isn't it? Actually explaining that there are all sorts of times we have to go through in life, in the world that we live in. And all of them are contained here, and the Bible's not embarrassed to mention the range of things that we have to go through. But it has been for me a time to weep, a time to mourn, a time to be silent. I found that I couldn't really say very much last few days really. Sometimes it is best to be silent. I believe it's also a time when we have to move from the theological to the personal, from a religion to more of a relationship really. There's ideas we have about God and stuff that the Bible tells us, but we have to experience it, we have to know it, we have to relate to it, particularly in times that we're going through at the moment. Just want to look quickly at Psalm 23 verse 4, where it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And they're famous words from the most famous psalm of all, Psalm 23. Just making 2 or 3 points from that very quickly. It's interesting as you read Psalm 23, the first 3 verses which talk about green valleys and still waters and guidance and so on. David's talking to about God as he. When it comes to verse 4, he changes and starts talking about you. God is no longer he, is the you. And it's become personal and experiential for him. It's not theory anymore, this is reality. And I feel it's time for us to get very real in this very real valley that we're in. It is a valley that we're going through. People are walking worldwide through the valley at the moment. We're certainly walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Here's a quote which spoke to me this week as I was looking at these verses. The quote is this: there is danger in the valley that we might get angry with God and reject him. There is an even greater danger in the green pasture, that we might become satisfied with the grass and forget the shepherd. Which is insightful. But there can be anger with God without rejection of God. And for me at the moment, I feel it's okay not to be okay. These are not okay times. We're not okay. I'm not okay. And for me, if I've got a relationship with God, I can be angry and express that anger to him as part of the grief that I'm going through, but without rejecting him. And that's the important thing. Second point really is that David has discovered the power of what I call the even though. So it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Even though. And there is a time for everything. And if you're going through the darkest valley as we are, in fact the stuff we've been reading about in the first 3 verses about green pastures, quiet waters and guidance aren't there really. If you're in the darkest valley, which is another translation for the valley of the shadow of death, actually it lacks light. If you're in the shadow of this darkest valley, you certainly don't have green pasture, and I'm not seeing any evidence of quiet waters either. But this is the dark valley, the darkest valley the Bible talks about that we can go through. There is a time for everything, and even though we're at war with Corona, even though we've lost Martin, even though we don't understand, even though we find it hard to pray and actually wonder what difference it makes anyway, even though we struggle for faith, even though we walk through this valley, we still can cling to the truth. That even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Are you going to join me with being one of the even though people? Even though, despite this stuff, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, still I will fear no evil. And so it goes on. I think there's a quick challenge for us to be the even though people. Even though things aren't as we want them, even though things are flipping awful, even though we feel miserable, we're still clinging on to what we believe. And the final thought, David still believes in the substance of the Lord's presence and Lord's comfort. I should look at the last part of the verse. It says, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You are with me. That's the truth. He's still with us. May not feel like it all the time, but even though we don't feel like it, the truth is he's still with us. You are still with me. It's you, not he, but you are still with me. It's personal. And comfort in this context isn't just talking about someone coming and saying they're there and putting an arm around us, although there's an element of that. As I understand it, the word comfort really means to strengthen. And this can happen in many ways. Sometimes we're least expecting it. A particular song that's comforted me this week is No One Ever Cared For Me Like Jesus by Stephanie Gretz singing. I'll send a link to it for you to listen to. I actually didn't feel like singing it. I actually didn't feel much like listening to it. I find that even the sentiment's hard at the moment, but nevertheless, in hearing it, out of the blue, it really ministered something to me. It's helped me. It's given me some strength. So there's 3 quick points, and I'm just saying this: there is a time for everything. Let's be a time of being strengthened as we weep, as we mourn, and we're silent. And again, to make that reflection, even though we're apart, maybe we feel closer than ever before. And as I said, we feel so sorry to lose Martin, and to our hearts go out to Anne and the family. So keep being prayerful for them and all the other things that Sue mentioned as well. And we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.